And we're back with our political panel. Peggy Noonan is a columnist for the Wall Street Journal, and she's also a CBS News contributor. We're also joined by CBS News political director John Dickerson and Mark Leibovich of the New York Times Magazine. Plus, we're joined by Democratic strategist and CNN contributor Stephanie Cutter and Republican strategist Phil Musser. Great to have all of you here. Let's start with some of the news this morning out of Iowa, a poll, because it's never too early to poll how Republicans are doing, all the candidates. And what we find, in what was arguably a small sample size, that Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker is at the top of the list of those in Iowa. And look, the establishment candidate, Jeb Bush, is near the bottom of that list, or at least fifth in that list. John, what does this say about what's happening in Iowa?
Well, I think it says a couple of things. First of all, as you pointed out, we all need to recognize the caucus is a year away. You'll see people rise and fall. Scott Walker had a good performance out in Iowa at the last weekend at the Steve King cattle call. He did well. That shows up in the polls. We saw this in 2012 when Michelle Bachmann had her moment, Herman Cain. It seemed every week everybody had another moment. What Scott Walker has those other candidates didn't have is he has a little bit of staying power. He has a quick elevator pitch. He can talk about being elected 3 times in a purple state and also that he took on the unions and he survived. That's what is, you have slow burn candidates and fast burn candidates. You want to be a slow burn candidate. You want to be there at the end. What keeps him from being a fast burnout candidate is this record he's got. So that's good for him. As far as the establishment candidates, they've got a long road in Iowa to convince people and to work on voters, so they don't need to be nervous about being fifth in the polls right now, but it does mean they have work to do.
Phil, this is your world. You live in Republican politics. Is it surprising to see Jeb in fifth, though, behind even Ben Carson?
Well, I don't know that he was in fifth or where he was, but I would say that the bunching between the top performer at about 15% and 9% is largely statistically irrelevant. I think what it does tell us about the state of the Republican Party is that the next in line syndrome that we've had in our party for the last 4 or 5 cycles is dead and gone, right? This is going to be a wide open race. I actually think the interesting consequence of this is to show you that in large part Iowa and New Hampshire may ultimately be less relevant to the determination of the ultimate nominee this go round. The conventional wisdom is you need to be, well, the conventional wisdom is you need to have a top 3 finish in Iowa and New Hampshire in order to win the Republican nomination. I think that's old conventional wisdom. I think if you look forward to 2016, the reality is that if you come in the top 5 and you have a super PAC, the chance that you could be standing with 3 or 4 candidates post Florida, all of whom are plausible for the nomination, is real.
And forgive me because I looked at this briefly, but they've bunched a lot of the other primaries together now, so there'll be more super primaries.
They have.
In the Republican process.
The party has shortened the process both with respect to debates and actually with respect to the contest. And so you have a regional series of contests that are shaping up. And what that means is you have to plan differently for your presidential campaign in 2016 than you might have before. The slingshot strategy of Iowa, I think, is over.
It's dead. That's interesting. Peggy, I think we were all waiting, on pins and needles on Friday to see what Mitt Romney was actually going to do. John Dickerson was sending us notes. I'm hearing from one source he's staying in. I'm hearing from one source he's getting out.
Yes, but it was like the hokey pokey, 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
A lot of texts going around at 10 o'clock in the morning.
There were a lot of texts going around about what Mitt Romney was going to do. He spoke to his supporters. I just want to play a clip and let our viewers hear exactly what Romney told his supporters. Let's listen.
I believe that one of our next generation of Republican leaders, one who may not be as well known as I am today, one who has not yet taken their message across the country, one who's just getting started, may well emerge as being better able to defeat the Democrat nominee.
Peggy, there were some people that looked at that and said, is that a dig at Jeb Bush? Is he talking about someone, a fresh face, someone other than Bush?
It could be interpreted that way. I'll tell you one thing about that statement that I found odd, I don't know if the rest of you did, is that this was Mr. Romney speaking to friends and supporters and bundlers and fundraisers. They are people who know him. And yet he didn't just have a phone call in which he told them his decision. He read from a script. You could tell from the way it sounded. And a friend of mine tells me, who had the script in advance, he didn't deviate a word. To me, it sounded a little bit like a public address system in an empty parking lot saying snow is coming.
That reminds me, Peggy, of when Romney told a group of supporters or big billionaire funders that he might get in. You said, first big mistake, that he would go back and announce in front of a bunch of millionaires and billionaires.
Yeah,
that
tell your friends.
Yeah.
So there was, so the ending, I think, arguably was a little bit clunky. I'll tell you what interests me about the Republicans this year, apart from what you say, Phil. a year ago, we were all thinking, you know, there's going to be 6 or 8 serious candidates among the Republicans. There could be 25 candidates among the Republicans.
Wow.
You're going to have a row at the debates of guys in ties, and everybody's going to get to say one sentence.
And potentially one woman or two.
Yeah.
So what about that, Stephanie? I mean, Politico reported this week that Hillary may now move back, or move later, essentially, in the schedule, her announcement. Why does she need to get in early while there's plenty of Republicans jockeying back and forth?
Well, I think that that story was retracted by Hillary sources, that she's not going to wait to get in. I think, you know, there are some fundamental things that you have to do if you're thinking about running for president. And the further you delay that, the harder it is to put those pieces together. At this time in 2011, you know, we hadn't exactly stood up the campaign, but we knew exactly how we were going to do it. We had the key personnel identified. We had a strategy. We were well on our way to setting up our state operations. So I don't
So you think she does have to get in early?
I think she does have to get in early, and I expect that she will get in early.
And Mark, we showed the poll earlier to Senator Durbin out of Iowa that Senator Clinton is 40 points ahead of Senator Warren. But is that a good thing for the party? Is it a good thing for Hillary Clinton to remain virtually unchallenged?
I don't think so. I mean, I think clearly, I don't think those numbers really mean all that much right now, but I think, you know, clearly there's no competition now. And I think if Elizabeth Warren were to get in, there would be some real oxygen that sort of gathered around her. But otherwise, no, I mean, I think she's in a very safe position, but clearly I think people want to see her out there. They want to see her in a dynamic environment, and you know, if she waits, that's just going to hold off.
And I think also, if you're being criticized for being a part of a coronation, it's not good to have your announcement date treated like a royal birth. I mean, we get story after story, you know, when is Prince George of Cambridge going to arrive? So her goal is to get out and talk about herself, not all this process stuff. That's why waiting, I think Stephanie's point makes great sense. And also, if it looks like a coronation, the people I've talked to in Iowa last week were saying that's all the more reason she has to get out there, show she's going to fight and grit and grind it out, even though she's got no competition. And there are plenty of people also say she needs the practice.
Yeah, and John makes a good point. The energy in this, the political energy in this country is really, I think, on the libertarian kind of isolationist on the right, there's an interesting pocket there, but also on the progressive left, there's this enormous vessel of pent-up energy that is currently manifested in the Elizabeth Warren kind of show that seems to never end. So just giving advice, if I could, to some Democrat thinking about running for president, now would be a terrific time to jump in, because you could both build your name, you could build your credential, and if you had the right message, you could grow a candidacy that credibly could make a lot of news and build yourself up. Whether you could beat Hillary Clinton, I have no idea.
I do think, though, that the dynamic between establishment and anti-establishment in both parties are really, really strong right now. And I think it would be really unfortunate if the Democrats didn't have that argument, which I think that the Republicans clearly are in a position to have right now.
You know, we spend so much of these panels talking about horse race, and we spend little time until actually the debate begins about issues. But one of the things that I watch very closely, and I think it's what drives that force in both of these parties, is the issue of the income gap and wealth inequality. And it's presenting itself in different ways in both parties. And it's interesting to see some of the Republican candidates talking about it, whether it's Marco Rubio or Jeb Bush or others, that very issue.
It is the strain in this election on both sides, how you help people enter the middle class and keep them there. I think where you're going to see a big difference once these debates start and people have to start answering questions is how you do it. And that's really when the parties are going to separate. And you know, the president's coming out with his budget this week, and it's a pretty clear roadmap of how he would do it. Middle class economics is what he calls it. You're going to see a number of Republicans, including those running for president, come out and pan it. And the question is, where are the American people? From everything that we see, the American people want some fairness in our economy. They want Washington to address it, and that means education and infrastructure and rebalancing our tax code.
People basically on left and right feel like the system is rigged and that the wealthy have the upper hand. And the way we run our presidential campaigns puts presidential candidates in the who do they spend their time with? Very, very wealthy people asking them for their money. And then when they do their campaign events, yes, somebody may talk about poverty. We know what it looks like when somebody's going to campaign on an issue. They go to places where people are actually poor and they engage at a protracted level. So let's see, there's a lot of rhetoric on both sides, but let's see how much the candidates actually spend in places doing these kinds of things.
And which side, on both sides of the partisan divide, some of these solutions are also going to create controversy within the Democratic Party or within the Republican Party, and that's going to be interesting in and of itself.
But I think candidates, it's interesting that they're talking about this, and I think it has to do with the fact that people in America understand that the poor now are stuck in a way they haven't been in the past and have various reasons that they can't rise, and somebody's got to look at that because it's kind of un-American that you can't rise, you know? So it's an essential issue.
It is the Super Bowl today. I know we usually talk about the Super Bowl of politics, but of course it is the Super Bowl today. And Mark, who you cover lots of interesting people, you have a great profile in the New York Times Magazine on Tom Brady. In fact, it's the cover. We'll show the cover, and you spent a lot of time with him, everything to what he eats and his life coach, his daily trainer. You're a longtime Patriots fan, but what did you find most interesting about Tom Brady?
I think, well, first of all, just having the experience of writing this, normally being a political reporter, it's actually shocking to write something that people really care about. I mean, politics, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
No, it's been stunning to actually be around someone who's, I don't think I've ever been around someone who is as workaholic and as dedicated to what he does as Tom Brady and football. I mean, the degree to which he micromanages his diet, his time, just sort of his mental energy was really amazing to me. And I, for the life of me, don't know why he let me in, but I was really privileged and it was really fun to be around it for a few months.
All right. Well, who rooting for? Anyone a Seahawks fan here? Bunch of New England Patriots.
Patriots.
I'll go. The pent-up frustration of Deflategate powers the Patriots, and then the Seahawks come back and kick a last-second field goal. I'll go Seahawks.
Great to have all of you here.
Right.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Mark.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.